The one with the boob job is the 16th episode of season 9 of Friends. This is directed by Gary Halvorson, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And as is usually the case with Friends, I will talk about each part of the narrative in turn. So I'll start off by talking about Monica, Chandler and Joey, and then very briefly about Rachel, and then Phoebe and Mike. And it's an enjoyable episode. There are some great moments. Because of my perspective and my opinions, I struggle to agree with Phoebe's thinking. So I don't love Phoebe's actions here, but at the same time, if you have similar feelings to Phoebe, then it is perhaps more understandable. But I'll talk more about that when we get there. Monica and Chandler are having money troubles. And Chandler says, no, we are not borrowing money. Bings do not borrow money. So Monica asks Joey for $2,000 without Chandler knowing. And he gives her the money, and it's so lovely. It's such strong character development. We don't that frequently get to hear about how successful Joey is as an actor now. Every now and then we'll be fed a little bit of something that suggests that he is climbing up the ranks and is maybe getting more media attention, and with that obviously can come with a bigger paycheck. But we don't really get to see that much of it, apart from when he moved out and bought a load of stuff. We don't get to see him really flashing the cash either. But it's really nice that after years and years and years of Chandler lending Joey money, he's able to repay that. And it's so lovely to see. And then that gets heightened because not only is Joey willing to lend Monica $2,000, but he also lends Chandler $2,000, who also goes behind Monica's back, as she did to him, and ask Joey for the money. And the fact that Joey can just sign a check or two checks totaling $4,000 seemingly without even thinking about it is just, it's so lovely. It's so lovely that he's finally at that comfortable stage in life. And Chandler, when Joey is making out the check, happens to see that there's a check stub for Monica, which was also for $2,000. And I have to say, Chandler, I don't want to be harsh, but I feel like he's being a little bit naive here, because Joey, who is coming up with responses very quickly here, mentions that actually it's for a boob job. Now, first of all, there are a few issues here. The first issue is that makes Monica look like a terrible person. If she and Chandler are having financial troubles, because Chandler's just an intern at the moment while he works his way through the ranks, you would not go to somebody and ask them for a loan for a boob job while you're struggling to pay the bills. That makes her look like a terrible person. The second issue there, of course, is that Chandler believed Joey, and that he believed Monica would do that. Maybe he just doesn't want to believe that Monica would go behind his back, but he's going behind Monica's back. So it's difficult to buy into. I don't believe that this part of the narrative would play out in real life. It's not convincing. But it is enjoyable, because then Chandler tries to tell Monica to not get a boob job without using those words. And he's telling her he doesn't want her body to change and she's perfect the way she is, which is nice. But Monica thinks that Chandler's freaking out because if she becomes pregnant, her body will change. And neither of them are on the same page here. And we do have some funny interactions. And Chandler refers to her giant ass and the big clown feet. And of course, if Monica's thinking he's talking about pregnancy changes, that's really harsh. But for us as the viewer, having that extra knowledge does make it a little bit more interesting. So it's difficult to buy into the narrative here. It makes both Monica and Chandler look quite bad. Not because they're borrowing money behind each other's back, but because Chandler thinks Monica would borrow money for a boob job when they're having financial difficulties. And, well, I guess Monica doesn't look that bad. Chandler just looks naive, but also it looks bad that he would believe Monica would do that. Monica, I guess, doesn't look too bad, but it's still ultimately a decent part of the narrative. Rachel's part of the story is brief but funny. She's baby-proofing the apartment. She's proud of herself because she found a hardware store. Not the nearest one, but a hardware store nevertheless. And ultimately she calls somebody to baby-proof the apartment, which I think is great. Know your limitations. Call in a professional. And Joey spends a lot of the end of the episode not being able to get into anything. Not only did Rachel have the apartment baby-proofed, she kind of had it Joey-proofed. And it ends with Joey finally getting into the fridge and realizing he doesn't know when he'll get back in. He takes a load of stuff out, and I just thought it was it was quite funny, quite entertaining, and certainly a nice way to involve Rachel in the episode. Then we come to Phoebe, and this is a huge emotional roller coaster. As I said, I'm not a fan of her decision at the end, but if you think like Phoebe, then you might think that it's reasonable, and I'm very, very keen to hear different people's perspectives and what you think of this, but obviously, in my opinion, I don't think it's reasonable. Mike suggests moving in together, and it seemed like a big step for the 6 of them becoming the 7 of them. And Phoebe starts thinking about weddings, and we find out that Mike never wants to get married again. It's not just no time soon, it is never. He's been there, he's done that. He doesn't want to get married. And of course, Phoebe pretends, yeah, I'm on the same page, I don't want to get married. But it's very clear that she does. And she goes to the expert to find out more. She goes to Ross the divorcer, as he is now calling himself. And he says all of the right things. Yes, he loved marriage, but it might not be for Phoebe. And everything's moving forward. We have moving day, and everybody's there to help out, which I thought was really lovely. And it is a little bit odd that they're bringing in a lot of Mike's furniture when Phoebe already has furniture, and it doesn't look like there's a lot of room for it, but I guess it's better than leaving it, I suppose. And then while they're moving things, Ross approaches Phoebe and says, you know what, everything I said about marriage, that's just me. It's so normal, you wouldn't like it. And then Phoebe did say something that I do think was important. She said that she'd never really had a normal upbringing, a normal life, and for once, she wanted the normal things. It was her time to experience things that a lot of people experience, which I do think is an important point to mention, that Phoebe hasn't had a lot of typical experiences. So it makes sense that she would want that. However, I really disagree with pretty much everything that happens after this. Mike and Phoebe break up, and they hug. Everybody hugs Phoebe, and they support her. That's really lovely to see. And it seems like the end of the relationship. However, I don't agree with it. When Phoebe says she wants the normal things, the typical experiences, does that mean she just wants a big party? I know Monica would be against that as a term, but surely the typical experience is living with somebody you love, spending time together, growing old together. What she's saying is, I want a piece of paper that tells me somebody loves me. And she's basically, let's say Mike is the love of her life. If she wants to marry him, that's basically what she was implying. Why would you break up with somebody just because they won't sign a piece of paper? Okay, so in the States, there are also things like healthcare benefits and things if you're married. I get that. But that's clearly not what Phoebe was getting at. She's basically saying, if you will not sign a piece of paper in front of a crowded room, then I don't want to be with you. And that's disgusting. I really am strongly against that. If you would let the love of your life go just because you don't want to sign a piece of paper, I think it's horrendous. What difference does it make? The rest of your life would look exactly the same. Again, minus some potential benefits that may come from being married legally. As Ross says, instead of checking the box that says Miss, you check the box that says Mrs. This is, of course, the other way on. What difference does it make? Phoebe would rather have a piece of paper than be with the person she loves. And I think that's a really, really poor decision. Because she's basically saying a legal document means more to her than Mike does. And I cannot get on board with that at all, because the normal typical things she wants is just a big party and a piece of paper. Whereas she should be wanting the marriage life, but without the actual wedding. Has this happened yet? Yes, it has happened. The scene where Monica and Chandler are discussing what they want for their wedding. This is a long time ago, of course. And Monica's talking about all of these extravagant things that she wants. And then Chandler says, okay, we can have the wedding. It's just that I thought we'd have the house with the little kitty door and the pool and the sign that said, we don't swim in your pool, so don't pee in our toilet. They're painting the picture of that married life. And I think that is what Phoebe wants. But apparently Phoebe thinks to get that, you have to have a piece of paper that somebody has signed to say they want to be with you for life. and she's just let that go with Mike. Now, if you think marriage, you can't have a marriage without being married, and I'm putting marriage there in air quotes, of course, then fair enough. But I think Phoebe is an idiot for letting somebody go just because she wants to walk down the aisle in a dress. For one day, she'd rather have that one moment than the rest of her life with Mike. And I can't get on board with it. I do not agree with her logic at all. That being said, we could flip it around. What difference would it make for Mike to just sign a piece of paper and spend one day at a wedding? What difference would that make? He's done the wedding thing before, but what difference would it make if he just had a wedding for one day and then spent the rest of his life with Phoebe? So yeah, it could work both ways. I think that's fair. Phoebe's being unrealistic. Maybe Mike needs to look at the bigger picture as well. But at the end of the day, Phoebe has just let something wonderful go because she wants to wear a dress and sign a piece of paper, and I can't get on board with that at all. She's more about the appearance of being married than the actual married, again, air quotes, life with somebody that she loves, and I just find it to be really, really frustrating. She's allowed wonderful things, but the expense of letting go her potentially true love, I don't buy it. I don't like it. I don't think it's a good decision for Phoebe. But more on Phoebe later. I can sum up by saying that this is a decent episode of Friends. It isn't the most satisfying because Monica and Chandler's behaviour, particularly Chandler's, is quite naive. I don't think it paints Monica in a good light if Chandler thinks Monica would do that. The Rachel story is brief but enjoyable, and Phoebe's is just frustrating as I think her priorities are completely in the wrong place. But nevertheless, the one with the boob job is still a pretty decent episode of Friends.